Our, I'll go. So we're really excited today to have you join us for the Future Ready Librarian webinar as we kick off our 2025 webinar series, and we'll talk a little bit more about that at the end. But today I couldn't be more excited to talk about curating library collections for literacy and a love of learning. You can get to all of the slides, and we'll share this at the end too. So if you don't want to do it right now, and I'm sure that Leah will probably share it too in the chat or even scan the QR code to get to the slides. But my name is Shannon McClintock Miller. I am the district teacher librarian in Van Meter, Iowa. I also serve as the Future Ready Librarian Leader, and you can find me on my blog and on social, and I also have my email in there.
Hi, my name is Melissa Corey. I am a middle school librarian from St. Joseph, Missouri. I'm also one of the past presidents of the Missouri Association of School Librarians. We just had our state conference last week, which was great. I do have a link in bio there at begins.ai, and on most socials, you can find me at Melissa Corey as well.
Hey everyone, I'm Amanda Hunt, also known as the Next Gen Librarian, and you can find me across all the platforms with that handle. I am a middle school librarian in Texas, and I am the secondary lead librarian for our district. Very involved in the Texas librarian community as well, and I'm so excited to be here today.
Oh, thank you guys for coming. And I'm excited because we get to talk about these things and being like in an elementary and a middle, and also working with our high school kids in our community. It's going to be really great to be able to share with all of you. So if you're listening today, please feel free to share your ideas in the chat. But to get started, I also wanted to thank our supporters for Future Ready Schools and, of course, Follett Content for being our library leadership sponsor. So today we're going to talk about just our library collections, and we know that our great collections are a gateway to fostering that love of literacy and engagement, and that we want our kids to be lifelong lovers of reading and of books too. And so we're going to share a lot of ideas today. And the thing that we're going to start with is exploring best practices for curating a collection that promotes literacy and engages independent reading. So I'm going to let Melissa kick us off.
So this is just kind of an overview of some things that have helped me diversify my collection quite a bit and engage students. Working with middle school students, I find that engagement is the key. They, might have an assignment where they need to read, for 20 minutes in class or read outside of school. But if you really want them to develop as readers and persist as readers, your collection should really be reflective of their needs. And so analyzing my collection, which is I'm right neck deep in this right now. I just started inventory today. I scanned 3,000 books in fiction. And so that is really just kind of an image from last year of what my shelves look like when I start that whole inventory process. The whole idea behind inventory for me is not just to see what's on the shelf, but to see what's not on my shelves. So figuring out where those gaps are in the collection. And I know Shannon's going to give some highlights of the collection analysis tools that are available through Tidal Wave. I use those a ton, especially when it comes to diverse offerings. Professional development and inspiration is really where I get most of my ideas for diversifying my collection or curating my collection to make it accessible for students. Those screenshots there on the left are from some workshops that I've gone to, most recently the Missouri Association of School Librarians Spring Conference. We have a great graphic novel list called the Denny O'Neil graphic novel list that I learned about all the nominees for secondary that are on that list. But one of the things that I do, and I will give a shout out as well to the manga librarian. Manga is a huge component of a middle school readers collection. It is a tricky one if you have not read very much manga before. And so there's lots of different librarians out there that, especially Jillian Rudis and a lot of others that have published books specifically on middle school manga. One thing that I do a lot is, as an elder millennial, is take photos of everything that I see and catalog it for inspiration. And so those two pictures in the middle are from different bookstores. One is from an independent bookstore. I'll kind of come back to the whole idea of that yellow table. But one of the things I found with students is if they don't see the books, they don't know that the books are there. So pulling those out and highlighting those into smaller collections, facing them out with those kind of shelf talkers as well. And I'm a big catalog collector. I grab all my catalogs and go through those really for the whole year to figure out what I want to buy. And so again, looking at things like the graphics collection from Scholastic helps me out when it comes to collection development. Okay. And last, I did kind of want to pull in some ideas for independent reading if you don't have access to book tracking technology. I have wanted a way for my students to, log the books that they read. That's one of the ways that motivates me as a reader is to update my Goodreads. You get that little, you know, update whenever you finish a book, you get suggestions for new books. But a low-tech way I've used with my students are just reading trackers. And these are at that link in bio that I mentioned before. They're a really good way to, hand these off to either individual students, or I've seen some folks use them as posters with whole classrooms for read alouds, where you do a read aloud and then you fill in each book as you finish it. So again, just ideas for engagement and curating books that your students really will want to read, but also making them visible because they might overlook them otherwise.
I love those ideas. And along the same lines of like looking at professional development, one of my favorite places is to see what people are posting. And I'll give a little shout out to Amanda because she loves to post. And tell them, Amanda, what your like tagline is actually.
I have been reading a book a day since 2019. So it really kicked up during COVID times when I didn't have as much access to physical. That's when I switched to audio, and then it just went through the roof from there. But yes, so I like to post one review a day of the different books that I've read.
Yeah, it's so helpful. And I love looking at other librarians. I love the one way over on the right. She is actually a mom and she does amazing posts. Jarrett Lerner, of course, and other like authors, and then even just publishers, like looking at all the amazing things that they're posting, you get so many ideas from there. Another thing I love to do is to watch what our public library does, but also other public libraries, like even within the state or around the country. Like I get so many ideas from Jonatha, our public librarian, and it's great because she posts probably as much as you, Amanda. I think she must read a book a day too. And it's really nice and great to even share with my kids and say, like, hey, you can check out, all the books that they have in the public library too. Another thing I love to do is visit bookstores. This is a new one in our area in Des Moines, and it's so great. But everywhere I travel, I just recently went to Nantucket and they had two of the best bookstores. Anytime you can like see ideas that they have, if it is, not only what they do within their library, but even how they're posting and sharing and celebrating books that are online too. And so that's really helpful. One thing I wanted to say too about, seeing how Melissa was using tidal wave for her collection analysis, it's great because there are a few neat things too that you can do that really help. One is you can set up, it's called Best of Tidal Wave, your review settings. And so you can set up like how many starred reviews that you want to see, or maybe even how many reviews that you would like to see. Maybe it's you want a review from school library journal, book list, whatever it is. You can set up those perimeters so then when you're looking for books, it will tell you then and give you kind of that best of tidal wave option that you personalized and set up. Another thing I love are the series release calendars. This is something that is pretty new from Follett and Tidal Wave. This is linked actually in the slides. So these things that we're sharing too, if there's something that we want you to refer to, you can just click on it and get to that really easy. But it's great. And I love getting those because I get them in my school email every month and I get the little calendar, a great way to keep up on series. And your kids really love that too, especially I think the middle school kids, upper elementary, they love it when we can complete our series. Another new thing from Follett is called Pass the Note, and this is really great because they've taken book lists and you can turn them into either like a reading list, you can turn them into like a curriculum recommendation. So great when you're working with your classroom teachers. And I love that it can even be a presentation. So I just presented to our parent group because they always buy our award books for the state of Iowa. And so I easily then could take that list and turn it into a presentation just to highlight then those books. It probably took me like 5 minutes or less to put that together. And so I really like that they have these little pass the notes now, and a great way, again, to find things that people have put together that they have curated and makes it really easy for us to be able to order. I also do these You've Been book list with Follett, and I probably do like 4, sometimes maybe a few more each month. I just posted one for summer reading, and you can get to it from their site too. But thinking about all the things that we do, there's nothing better too than just talking to our kids and asking them what they love to see, like watching how they're in our library and they're interacting with our shelves and our books and even each other within our spaces. And so I love just thinking about what our kids bring to that too. The next thing are creative ways to engage students with books and digital resources that spark curiosity and excitement. And I'll kick us off and just start talking about our library spaces. And I'm in a very small library space, and I always have been in different spaces within our building, but we've always made it a place for all of our readers. And I'm in a school where we work with preschool to 12th grade kids. And we're excited because we're actually building onto our school, and it's going to include a library for the first time for our readers. But I just love how we can make, it a space for our kids. One thing that I do a lot of is when watching the kids and talking to them and looking at what they really love and what's popular is just finding new ways to organize and share our books. In our elementary collection a few years ago, we started using little baskets and bins, and we just got these at Walmart. We made the tags. We had some little hooks that we tied in here, and it's made a huge, huge difference in how they're seeing those books. Another thing that we do a lot of throughout our school, because we have a small library and we need to have some room, but also this has worked so well that we've added pop-up libraries throughout our building. We probably have about 20 now, I bet, throughout our building. And they're actually going to be, even bookshelves, when they do the addition, are going to be built into the walls in the new space because our architects and the designers thought that was so neat to see, and it's worked really good for our kids. But in these pop-up libraries that we have throughout the hallways, one of probably the favorite spots for teachers to grab books are just our special event pop-up libraries. But anything we can do to share, diverse stories, to share inclusiveness with the kids and get these into the hands of our readers and our teachers is just so special and important. Another program that we love, and we started this actually kind of around the pandemic, is our You've Been Book program, and it's turned into our book hub. And our You've Been Book program, it used to be where we would pop a book in a bag, we would have a list, and the teachers would share these little bags, but we had so many requests, and it was a lot of work. It made our job a little bit hectic in the afternoon. And so now we just have a book hub takeout, and teachers can come anytime they want. Sometimes they send their little ones too down to get a book, but it's great because it's a really fantastic way to get great books into our classrooms, and our teachers have read more and more books that are just, really great books that we want them to bring to their readers too. Another thing that I always try to think about is bringing our book displays to life through technology. And so if we have something where maybe it's a display like right here of just these are our state award books, I might create a choice board, and when the kids go to that, we share it with them like in their Google Classroom or through a QR code, then it will take them to all of those book trailers too, so it can kind of bring, those to life. And I always make those into a bookmark, a great thing to share with our kids too. And then on the back of it, they could keep track as they were reading for when they vote then in the spring of those award books. So just kind of a fun way where they can take those displays with them as well. We thought about when we saw how good these displays and things were going in our school, the teachers came to me and they wanted to make pop-up libraries of books that they were using in the classroom. And so we started doing this where this is tied to their groups in their classroom, the reading groups. And not only can they find the books on our shelves, these pop-up shelves, but we also put together just virtual library choice boards. And these are what they're reading from for their book groups, but it's really increased the reading that they do too outside of class, on the go, even in summer, and also like holiday breaks and things that they do too. And then one more thing is just anything that we can do to spark excitement and fun with reading and book activities. If it's gamifying with Kahoot or maybe like Breakout EDU, if it's finding things that we can send home, like we're getting ready for summer reading, that will get them excited. But I think anything we can to just like spark that excitement and joy of reading is one of the best jobs that we have too as librarians.
Awesome. I love the book trailer idea, and I think I'm gonna do that with our state award nominees for next year
I
because it's
can,
been a while since we've had all of our book trailers for those in
oh
one
yeah,
place.
I'll send you the template for
Yeah,
that. You don't have to
that's awesome.
reinvent the wheel. Yeah.
So these are just a couple of things that I've done with my collection. Again, working with middle school students, my goal is that they're able to find the books that they want independently because it's just me. And when we have classes in to check out, I want to make sure that, they're not just doing that lap. So a lot of times a few years ago, I would see kids walk, all the shelves, and then they say, I didn't really find anything today. I don't want to check out. So I have tried to pull basically smaller collections out, and a couple of those are my new books. So I mentioned that yellow table that was from an independent bookstore in Kansas City, and it kind of gave me an idea to make our new books a little bit more apparent because I'd have them up by my circulation desk or on a shelf and kids would overlook them. So now I just say, hey, go to the yellow cart. Anything that comes in, it goes directly to the yellow cart for a couple of weeks, and then it's a very easy way for them to find that. I've also separated out all of my popular series. Again, kind of that whole metric of is it popular, is it not? If it's something that's still circulating, so you might see, like, for instance, I still have Hunger Games and Maze Runner and series that are a little bit older, but they're still highly circulated. I have all of those spaced out and dynamically shelved. A couple of things about that, I have, the first book out on an easel. If that checks out or if the whole series checks out, I will usually put up a sign because, again, I don't want students to be deterred from reading it. We can always just put it on hold. And then to help students browse that, I have these little shelf tags. Those are available on my link in bio as well. So that way they can independently see what order those books go in and whenever they're browsing as well. And so it's a really easy to find section of our library just to kind of look at their behavior and see how they're browsing. Okay. And then a couple other things. These are just, I was looking at my library the other day and I'm like, what are some smaller things that I've done, to make it a little bit more browsable? I used to have, my nonfiction sports section was just sports. So all the sports just kind of in one section. I thought about, oh, do I put those with sports fiction? To make them circulate a little bit more with biography. And I've done that a lot with displays. But I just decided to make those into each their own small collection. So even if our students don't know, the exact Dewey Decimal number. I'm still on Dewey for nonfiction. It makes it a really easy way for them to browse. I've also started to put a lot of ephemera on shelves to give kids kind of a hint of where things are. So you see that right up there by Shakespeare, or a couple of footballs, or sometimes I'll put, depending on the season, baseball gloves and things like that up there. So they kind of know that's a sports section. I have a few areas like that. And then I do have all my links to Sora and our online resources through our public libraries. We share a lot of those with them on our website. So if students can't find what they want, I can direct them there as well. And I think this is hopefully my last one for this. I do have displays that I switch out, but I do have two kind of semi-permanent display areas. One are state award nominated titles, kind of like I mentioned earlier, that I want to add those book trailers to now. And one area that I have for our students is quick reads. So a lot of times kids get a little bit intimidated, especially if they haven't read a longer book in a while. And I have books under 250 pages here. And these are right up front, so it's really easy for me to direct kids to those. Another thing that I've done as well is to create micro displays, which are really just kind of a little eye-catching, teeny tiny display. I was going to grab this cart before I left work and I forgot. But if you have a 3D printer, you can print small bookshelves, small carts, things like that. And these are just the covers of our award nominees for the Truman List. And it does kind of capture kids' attention. Sometimes I'll put it elsewhere in the library, and then they see those and they want to navigate back to the original display as well.
I love how you do that, Melissa. I think that's so cute.
Yeah. It's a fun thing, and the kids really get intrigued by it. And then they want their own. So then I'm running the 3D printer for them.
I know. I think it's just so cute.
Oh, and this is my last one. These are just a few other displays. I kind of have, these are the three main display areas in my library. I do try to change them out every month. Usually, again, just based on student interest, maybe things that might be popular at the time, the different heritage months or different months that are going on, like right now with National Poetry Month. Again, that desk that's on the right there, that was my Halloween display. It kind of blocks the library, like the two sections of the library. So students have to see it like they see it when they walk in. And so those are just some different areas. Again, I might be able to direct kids over to, hey, here's the scary books, here's our basketball books. But if I can feature those and get them reading those books, and then they can eventually go to those individual genres, that's always a win.
Yeah. So when we were adding slides and stuff, I went to go add my stuff and I was like, oh my gosh, Melissa did all the things I was going to say. So I'm so glad that she was able to, no, you're good. I was like, I do. So yeah, it's been real successful in my middle school as well to have like, pop-up displays, new cart, have bookshelf talkers, series together using all the different, display design stuff. I love it, and the kids love it too. But first and foremost, when I was thinking about this webinar, I was just like, I want to make sure that everyone knows, like, make sure you're reading, like, and I know that's silly to say, but that's like something that I hear a lot when people reach out to me for like collection development help or what's new and all these kind of things. And just make sure, I mean, I'm not saying read an insane amount, I'm just saying, like, and for the ages that you serve, especially with all the things going on right now around book challenges and stuff like that, you want to know kind of what your collection looks like, what the kids are interested in, so that you can best lead them in the right direction. And so I just have put up here some different apps that I use for how I read. I do have access to advanced reader copies, both in ebook and audiobook. So I am a big audiobook fan. And some of our students are too. So having that conversation also about, how legit audiobooks are, and it's just a different way to read, is important for them to feel, because it never fails. Every year I'm like talking to them about my Sora collection, or, and they're like, audiobooks don't count. And I'm like, oh my gosh, who was telling you this? So I really try to like fix their mindset on that. One of the cool things, and I think Melissa made a great point about how we love to like check off on our list that, yes, I read it and this is my goal and all that stuff. And so a lot of my students, we are a one-to-one iPad district, and so they have access to Storygraph and Goodreads, but I really try to push Storygraph a little bit more because of all the analytics. I have kids that are very much math brained, and they want to see like how many books did I read and what genres, you know, where gaps do I have? Like it's really funny because I think ever since Book Talk kind of took off on TikTok, the conversations surrounding reading and tracking reading have been really interesting. So those are just some resources for you to look into to see if you can connect with your public library. We do with Sora, and the kids can read books from the public library through Sora as well. And then, so yes, as Shannon mentioned, I do post book reviews on my accounts, like across my platforms. I really try to get read as many advanced reader copies as I can because I know there's a lot of librarians that are kind of watching to see, you know, what age group is this going to be for? Who is this targeting? Like who, you know, who would you put this in your middle school library? I get that question all the time, especially with young adult titles. So you know, I do try to mix it up and not make sure I'm doing the same age all the time. I do have adult books on there because I am an adult. So I like to read for me as well. And so I'll put at the top, I'll put adult read so that any of the students or former students that follow me, they know that that's, you know, not for them. But just a disclaimer. So yeah, that is linked in there. Just straight to my I do the review, and then I am big on content warnings, making sure that our tweens, teens, anyone that is reading these books are aware of some of the potential big topics that are discussed in that book. And so I do try to make that a priority when I post reviews, just so that we're taking care of our kids' mental health.
I have to ask how Atmosphere was.
Oh my gosh. It was so good. I am like ready for this to be a movie. I can't even tell you. And we got to hear her talk at TLA. She was at the Texas Librarian Association conference right before, like in a few weeks ago. And yeah, like if you, I, you're gonna love it. We'll talk.
Seven Husbands, one of my favorite all time.
Yes. I
Yes.
can't wait for that movie. Yeah, that's going to be great. And then something I've done the last several years is I've curated collections. I started it by calling it "What Are You in the Mood to Read?" And for me, it started with like romance tropes, right? So, like I, as an adult and young adult, there's tropes in there, and even middle grade. Middle grade's coming out with some romance stuff now. I mean, obviously age appropriate romance, but it is asking like, but there are tropes in there, and same with even mystery. Like mystery has its own kind of tropes too, like locked door and trapped in snow, like those kinds of things. So it started with that because I would get a lot of requests from readers and librarians saying, I have kids asking for XYZ and they really want these kinds of books. And so I started making mood reader boards, and a lot, and I kind of had to get real specific lately because I feel like I've done every single one of them that's out there at this point. I do the holidays, the heritage months. You know, we had the Summer Olympics. Candy cover or theme was one that I was actually reading for a bingo challenge of my own, and I was like, I can't find any of these, so I was like, let me just make one real quick. Shout out to Melissa for her. If you like this, read this. Those have been so awesome in my library. If you have a flip book anywhere that you can put it for kids to kind of flip through. I like to do a lot of things that are popular. Like if you know what shows they're watching on Netflix, it's great to then kind of curate lists because I can't keep any Jenny Han on the shelf and any of those things that are really popular TV shows and movies and things like that. So that's a link to the mood reading boards. There's hundreds of them in there for anyone to access. And then I'm more high tech on that side of things. I don't do a whole lot of printouts and stuff like that because my students have been one-to-one with iPads for 16 years now. So they grew up with it, and that's kind of the norm for them. And so I like to use like design apps to kind of create things. I've done lessons where kids can create their own comic books for like comic book month or like it's like National Comic Book Week, but we're actually having a Comic-Con in my district. And so I did this lesson with the kids the last couple of weeks. And it was really cool to see them create their own. So it's a way for them to be like, oh, well, I want it to be like Dog Man, but I'm going to call it something different, like Hamster Boy or whatever. And so they're able to kind of get inspiration from the books that they're reading. I also used Adobe Express for the one on the right because it's create your own book cover. So I had students kind of we were talking about Catherine Applegate, and so this title came up, and I was like, I love the cover that's original because it looks all cartoony and cute, but let's make it realistic. And so it's just a way to kind of reimagine, and then it gets kids talking about the books.
Do you know that Otter is a picture book now?
I did. I saw that at TLA and I wanted it so bad. And I saw your unboxing, man.
Oh, I was like, I almost cried. It's so special.
If it's anything like the cover, I'm going to be totally here for that. I love that cover. And then also I've just have students like Melissa talked about her summer, coloring thing, which I absolutely love. I'm going to steal it from her and make it digital so the kids can color it because they love coloring on their iPad. But summer reading list, reading bingo. I'm a big bingo reader just because I'm such a mood reader. And sometimes if you just tell me, pick what you want to read, it's like super overwhelming to me. And I know it can be that way for the kids, especially when they walk into a library and the whole library is out for grabs. Some of them need a little bit of direction. And so if you said, oh, you have to read a realistic fiction book, and they're like, oh, yes, I'm going to go get one of those. And so it kind of helps guide some of our kids. We also started a podcast at my school, and they do book recommendations and book reviews, and they're going to start interviewing authors next year. So we're excited to get that off the ground too, to promote reading. And then with a generative AI, it's a lot of fun that you can use, especially with Adobe Express, which is free for K-12 districts, and it is made by educators for educators. So it's not going to have anything inappropriate. It's not stealing from creators. And so my friend Martha Bongiorno did a pumpkin theme where it was like you take a jack-o'-lantern and you create a book cover with it. And so I did Twilight with instead of the apple, it's the pumpkin. So it's just fun to like take these cool ideas or trends. So I don't know if y'all saw around Instagram a couple of weeks ago. It's not my house, but I know my way around. And so I obviously put like a bookstore, a library, places like a coffee shop that I tend to haunt. And so the kids were able to kind of think of that, but I told them we're going to make it bookish. And so anything you can take that's like a trend out there and that you can turn it into the library is definitely going to pique their interest and get their attention. And along with the podcast thing, that's something that the kids now use their own graphic to promote their titles. And so not only are they then reading the books, they're actually doing shelf talkers and book talks for me. So it's been really helpful because I can say it all day long and they're like, okay, Miss Hunt. But when their peer says it, that's when it really can make a difference. And so I had them do that, but then I also have like those shelf talkers that they can also rate the books. And so we were having kind of like an idea brainstorming session that we'll do like prizes if you read the books of the week that have been highlighted on the podcast. It'll be like a special display that we do, and then they can fill out one of these cards, and it's basically like an all school book club, but just totally optional and for fun. And I'll do like prizes or something easy, but again, it's just to kind of get everyone talking about different books, and something fun we're going to do next year.
Such a good idea.
And I think lastly, mood boards have been kind of a big deal lately, especially around like the new year. And so I picked a book, Adriana Cuevas, What Fell from the Sky, and I made a mood board with it. And so it's something fun that you can have the kids do as a challenge. You can actually have them. So I did it as like a lesson in the library, and then I had them turn it into me, and then I posted it on our Apple TV that's a revolving slideshow. And so then they could also be like, oh, that's what that book has in it. Because sometimes they'll read the description and they still aren't quite sure what it's about. So having those like things that pop out at you when you read something have been fun. Doing character creations, like so they pick one of their characters from a book that they read and they turn it into like a trading card, or they make it, just a character design template. And then I always do my reading wrap up. That's where Storygraph and Goodreads come in handy because they come with the stats. And so if I have so many kids that are like that too, that want to see their end of year, and so I always post this in my all campus Canvas course, that they can take this template and they can make their own. This is what I read this year. These are my goals. This is, that kind of thing. So just a fun way to have them really reflect on what they're reading and be intentional about what they plan to do for this next year.
Love the character design. It's so cute. The next thing is thinking about the question, how can we leverage data and student voice to ensure collections are reflective, relevant, and responsive to our school communities? And again, I think probably one thing that we all do a great job of is just fostering all kinds of ways to connect to your kids. If it's talking to them, if it's reading, learning, whatever we're doing, but really listening to them. We do a lot of book wish lists and recommendations in our library. We have this little post office box, and then the kids can add their recommendations that either they make on a sticky note, or sometimes they even just put them immediately onto the shelf, just like if you were at a bookstore or something and they love that. I made this template just in Canva, and then you can get sticky notes made from Vistaprint. So really easy to make your own sticky notes, and they don't have to be an actual sticky note. You can just print it off, and we do this too for our book request. And they can put them then into the mailbox once they have that request, or because we work with middle and high school kids too, they can scan the QR code and then it takes them right to that form online that they can fill out. It's just a Google form. So giving them lots of different options on how to get to that. Another thing is going back to Tidal Wave when you are doing, your collection development. One thing that I love is, and this is kind of what Melissa said too, is I'm always thinking about what we don't have as well on our shelves. And I love this in the diversity, equity, and inclusion part of Tidal Wave, that you can actually look like how many things that you have in the different topics. But then if you click on search, it will go into books that are recommended. And I love this because it really helps me with finding books that I want to put on my shelf that are going to be just great books for our readers. And it's helped me when I am thinking about, two different libraries in our school and a lot of different ages. It's really been helpful to be able to fill a lot of those spots for our readers too. And just one of the best things I think about being a librarian is watching how excited our kids get when they tell us a book that they want and we get it for them. This little girl, this was a few years ago, and she loves rocks. And she's like, we need more books on rocks. And I thought that is like the best request I've ever had. And so when I showed her, she was so happy. So it doesn't matter what they're reading, what they're interested in, but when you connect them to those and you listen and they show up in the library, like you have hooked that child for life on wanting to be a reader.
Yeah, that's a big part of one thing that I've tried to do as well, and I'm really glad to see that from Tidal Wave, is developing book lists that are representative of our not only our student population but the world in general. And so a couple years ago, I started making visual book lists, and I do have a website with lots and lots of templates. But one of the things that I found and I just mentioned this today to somebody, is that when I started creating book lists, some topics I would come across and I'm like, oh, I have so many books on this topic. But there were others, especially when it came down to certain heritage months. I remember working on a Native American Heritage Month list, and I was like, I don't have enough books in my collection to fill up an entire page. And so I've really started to use developing book lists as a way to evaluate my collection and work on collection development and further diversify my collection itself. And, the one in the middle, for instance, for Filipino American, a few years ago, we had 5 teachers from the Philippines come to teach in my building. We have a pretty large international teaching population in our school district now. And our kids were very curious about Filipino culture. And I actually had quite a few books on Filipino culture, and by Filipino authors, but I added more because they had, an endless number of questions, about, their background and what it was like where they were from as well. And so those have been a really good way for me to showcase the books that we have, but also buy more books on those particular areas. Another piece of that too is I think it's really important to develop trust with your students. And, like Shannon mentioned, there's nothing better than a student asking for a book, getting that book for them, and, delivering it to them or passing them down and seeing the look on their face when you have it. So a couple things that I've done in the past. I have been fortunate enough to be able to offer free book fairs to our students, to do book giveaways twice a year. Going forward, it is less and less likely that I'll have a solid source of funding for that. I had $0 for it this year. We made it work with some very generous donations from librarians across my state, as well as some donors choose. But it is, a really great thing if you have, a PTA, or you're able to do donors choose, you're able to get some books into students' hands, because it is a little bit different when they're selecting a book that they're going to own. I do work with a pretty high poverty population. And so a lot of times they haven't been able to purchase books from a traditional book fair as well. I do that stack of books with MexiKid and Dogman. I have, pretty decent luck with donors choose. Sometimes I feel like in my community, it's hit or miss. You kind of have to post your, project at the right time, to the right people. But it is really, really great to be able to get tons of copies of books that students do want to read. And so they're not, stuck on a waiting list for those as well. And I do a lot of prizes along with my book giveaways. So different things that would be in, a more traditional book fair setting as well.
The last thing is discussing how we can support our teachers and literacy initiatives by aligning the library collection and program with instructional goals. And being a teacher and being a librarian too, one of my favorite things is the collaboration that we get to do with our teachers. And for a long time, we have done a lot of collaborating, and especially in the last few years, our reading curriculum's changing to science of reading and other things. More and more, I have been asked to help in our classroom libraries, and I'm so glad. And so taking what we do in our collaboration and aligning the curriculum with our library collection and program goals is always something that I'm thinking about, and something that I love to do too. And that support that we give our classroom libraries and our reading programs in special and unique ways, just like our pop-up library that I shared with you, that we also had that virtual, that has changed the way that our kids are reading. And that direct connection to me to be able to help with those collections is helping the teachers make sure that they're getting the best books into the hands of our kids. And so anything that we can do to support them as well. Another thing is our kids really want to see themselves in books, and they love seeing themselves as authors, right? And illustrators. And one thing that we love to use is Book Creator, and it's so exciting. I put this slide in there actually yesterday before I knew this, but our little kindergartners were the 4th runners up in the big contest that Book Creator just had, be an author. And it was so fun today to be able to go into their classroom and tell them and have them see, all the people around the world who are reading their book now, but just for them to know that they also can be seen. It doesn't matter, what they love, they're sharing their story here, what they do, what they want to talk about, how they color, or if they want to say something in the book. I love that we can bring that together and give them a place to be able to do that with something like Book Creator and other tools like Adobe too, and that connection that we have. Another thing is just fostering a love of reading as a community. And one big thing we did last year is our parent group added our book vending machine to Van Meter. And this has really made a difference too in getting them really excited. And then this summer, we're actually adding a story walk. And these are some pictures from my friends in Texas. And I love this because I just get so inspired by seeing how other people are using their story walks, no matter how they create them or where they do, but really getting our community involved too.
And this is just one example of, so kind of thinking about curriculum and goals. I try and collaborate with all of my academic departments. My social studies department is, I will say, they're a little bit over the top. And so they always have this idea to create a museum twice a year in our library. And I like the idea of the library being not only a big classroom, but also a museum space. So we do two different exhibits, and these involve not only, our physical collection, but also different artifacts from, for instance, from the National Holocaust Museum. They have great educational sets online, and we're able to get those printed and replicated for our students, as well as using some multimedia with different videos from the 9/11 Museum for our 9/11 display and the National Holocaust Museum. I use a lot of StoryCorps style videos, the animated style videos for our students. It makes a lot of those heavier historical topics a little bit easier to approach. But it is something that I feel like has helped connect our library to the curriculum in a really big way, because we bring every student through over the course of a couple of days to kind of go through a museum style exhibit because they might not have had the opportunity otherwise. So that's just an example of my collaboration with social studies. Just as in kind of a little bit of I have to get up and down that ladder a lot to get all of this set up. But it's worth it because our students ask a lot of really good questions, and it ties into some bigger goals we have in our curriculum.
Yeah, I remember seeing these and they're so neat, Melissa, how you do that. I love it. Well, we have shared just so many just strategies on how we curate our library collection to support literacy and a love of reading, but we would also love to open it up to all of you. If you want to add something that you do, please pop it into the chat and we can grab that too. And we can share those ideas when we share the recording and all of our resources, but we would love to hear your ideas too. And I'm going to just see if we probably have a couple minutes for questions before we share some resources at the end and kind of wrap us up. I can't see the chat because I'm sharing my screen, but Amanda or Melissa, are there any questions in there?
I think a
There
lot of people want to know about the pop-up books and how you check those out.
Probably, yeah. So in the slides too, I actually have put a couple links to my blog. But with the pop-up libraries, the books are not checked out. When we first started them, we tried to do that, and that was like a lot of work and kind of a mess. And so our teachers are the ones that are taking books off of the shelves, the pop-up libraries, and using them. The book sets, though, of course, are being used. The kids will go get those and use them in their classroom. Last year, at the end of the year, we did inventory of our pop-up libraries and we had 0 books missing. And so I was flabbergasted that that was the way it was, but it was great. And our kids love them so much, and our teachers that, they want to keep them there. We even have our 4th grade, we have one teacher, and she has her kids dust them every day too. That's one of their jobs. And so, because they are a little bit of work. And so it's been great. It started out as like trying to solve a problem of space and room. And during the pandemic, when we had to stay in our classrooms all day and couldn't go anywhere, it was a great way for me to get the library down into the hallways. But now it's just proved that it's a really wonderful way to get more and more books into the hands of our kids and into our teachers' hands too in the classroom. So if you have any other questions, though, you can always reach out to me and I'm happy to help. Are there any other questions? And you have our information.
There was
Oh,
one
Yeah.
earlier about pass the note. Is it for
Yes.
school age or for adult books as well?
I think you can do any books. You could do any books probably because there's past the list books, but you can also make your own. And so that's a good thing too. Yeah, I love it. Well, if you have any other questions, you guys kind of just think about them and you can put them into the chat as we go through just a few resources and wrap up our webinar for today. I wanted to share to just the bit.ly one more time and the QR code, and you can grab that and get to all of the things that we shared. We also wanted to share the webinar series, and it's great. We did this last year too, where we have all of them in one spot, and so you can see all 5 of the webinars this year. We actually have one coming up on May 7th, the summer bookshelf. I'm excited because we're going to have some authors on and other librarian leaders, educators, sharing books that they've either written or that they are reading. And so really excited about this one, and that is on May 7th, so you can register for that one too. A few resources that we wanted to share as well. This is one, I love it. It's called the Achievery from AT&T. At the link at the bottom or the QR code, you can get to this, and this is free. Everything in it is free digital resources for all ages. Every subject from English to math to digital literacy, technology. There's some great new ones on AI in here. And what AT&T has done is collaborated with, these are a lot of the collaborators that they've had, like Girls Who Code, code.org, Bottle, Media Smarts, Scratch, so many amazing ones. And they have put together then lessons around these topics that are little short videos and then really simple lessons that you can use with your kids. And I love this too because a lot of times when we have our kids, especially if we're on a fixed time and we have them come in, a great way to teach a lesson to them and be able to do it in the amount of time that you have if they're coming to the library. But even if you're popping into the classroom or collaborating with teachers, these are a great thing because we know that video hooks our kids, and so they've done a great job of doing that. They also offer some live events, having it be Earth Day today. This was one that they had highlighted, and it was a session with astronauts because they have a collaboration with NASA, and so they've done a great job to put those together too. But you can sign up at this link. This is a great resource. My teachers absolutely love it. We use it in all grade levels, and a great one to jot down and share with your teachers too. So good too for families. This is free for all families. We just had a digital literacy event at our school at nighttime, and we had a man come and talk about news literacy, and it was really great. And I made a choice board, and the Achievery was a big part of that because that's free for all of our families too. And so lots of things that they can use, any time of year, but especially with summer reading coming up. Also, I wanted to mention Harmony. These are the quick connection cards. There's lots of resources at the link on Harmony, but these are free and a great little conversation starter. These would be really fun. I know that we're looking for things at our school to do. We have about 3.5 weeks left. And so my teachers are looking at me for activities and ideas. And so this is going to be one that I'm definitely going to put out in the office for them to use. The Future Ready Librarians Hub is where you can find everything around Future Ready Librarians, including our framework and our conversation starters and different things that we have that will be really helpful, like the self-reflection guide. We also are on our season 10 of Leading from the Library podcast, and so that's been great. Amanda and Melissa and so many others have been guests on our podcast over the years. And I always learn so much. There are so many inspiring stories out there. And so please listen and subscribe, and also reach out to me if you'd like to be a guest, because I'm always looking for new guests to be on the Leading from the Library podcast too. This one joins also a couple others for Future Ready, one with Tom Murray and then one with Adam File and Carl Hooker. And so you can find all of those on there. We have a few events coming up too that are one-day events. One is in Nashville this summer, and this is in July. And then we have one in Maine coming up in October that we'll share really soon too. But if you're looking for something to bring to your community, the EdTech Fusion virtual workshops are great. These are put on either by Tom or by Adam or myself. They're free for your community, and so a great way if they're looking at you to do something around PD and using EdTech tools, this would be a great option. And so you can find the link at the bottom as well. But please stay connected, join the Future Ready Librarian Facebook group, and you can also just follow what Future Ready is doing. Use that hashtag in Future Ready Libs. And wanted to give just a big shout out again to Follett Content for supporting all of the work that we do with Future Ready Librarians, but just also supporting us as librarians and educators within our school every day as well. But thank you, Amanda, and thank you, Melissa, for joining me and our guests. And it's always great. I had a little sticky note, so I have notes too on what I'm going to do tomorrow, thanks to the two of you. So big, huge thanks. And I'm so happy that everyone came, and just enjoy your week. And we'll see you in May for the webinar.